everybody. Episode 38 of Room 9 is here, and this is going to be the quickest intro ever. This is one from the vaults. I sat down with Matt a little bit ago and I had to pull one out because I had a laid-back kind of week. Got my kids in town for another few weeks, and I'm just enjoying my time with them. But I am going to continue to provide you with all the Room 9 services that you always get. Anywho, episode 38, I'm with Matt. We talk about a bunch of stuff, a lot about self-talk and how it's important to really be kind to ourselves and learn how to develop self-love and self-compassion and stay out of self-pity. So other than that, I'm going to get you right to it. As always, contact page, hit it up. Support page, hit it up. Help us out. Give us some likes on the old Facebook and Instagram and all that other jazz on the social media sites. And other than that, I will go back to enjoying my children and working and getting stuff done. And I will be in touch with you guys in the next week. All right. As always, I love you guys. Later.
Thank you for listening to Room 9, my daddy's podcast. Hope you enjoy. If you would like to help Room 9, please visit their support page. You can listen to Room 9 on your favorite podcast listening platform. Don't forget to visit our Instagram and Facebook page. Please like it. Room 9. If you better yourself, you better the world.
Wait a minute. You're Sean Connery. Oh, you better believe it. How you gonna know? Think about that one. You're Sean Connery. That's the whole thing. That's what separates us. Yeah, things have changed. It's ridiculous. Even listening to morons for so long. I don't know what's gonna happen, but I don't know what's gonna happen, but wait a minute. You're Sean Connery. Wait a minute. You're Sean Connery.
I feel like I should have taken a Claritin before. Do I sound stuffed up?
Not so much.
Do I sound normal?
No, not when you yell like that, no. I love that. So you just let me know if you need me turned up in the old headphones.
No, I can hear you. Maybe turn me up a little in my own headphone.
That's right.
Hello, check 1, 2. Oh, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that sounds good. Right there.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
For some reason, right around this time of day, I just get exhausted.
Do you?
Especially if I watch Jeopardy, I'll fall right to sleep.
Most people do fall asleep when they watch Jeopardy.
It's like the old person, this is pre-bed nap.
I do. Honestly, I like taking a nap, like even if it's 15, 20 minutes between like 3 and 5 o'clock.
Oh, that'd be great. That's usually when the day's winding down. You hit that wall. Boom. Nap time.
Sometimes it feels good, dude.
Yeah, it was great, actually, because then that was the day I took my car to the wrecker and did all that.
I find, honestly, I get more done if I sleep in a little bit. I've really started noticing the importance of sleep.
Yeah, I did a checkup, a medical yesterday or 2 days ago, Tuesday, and they said you really need to get a CPAP because that's probably why I'm tired all the time, which Megan's been saying the same thing. I think I have sleep apnea because I wake up a lot. I snore pretty heavily.
Really? Oh, that sucks.
I wake up probably 4 times a night, which
you
is great
really?
because then I just, eat some ice cream which is, I feel like that's an addictive behavior. I brought it up in my last counseling session, actually.
Yeah, I would say so. I've done that every once in a while.
It gets out of hand with me, though, dude, because it'll start off with like, oh, I'm going to munch a handful of goldfish, and then it's like, I need this 2-pound bag of goldfish in me before 3:30, or I can go back to bed.
It is. I wake up sometimes, and I haven't done it for the last, because I've tried to stop it, but sometimes I'll just wake up and eat ice cream or something.
Right.
Like, what the hell is wrong with
Right,
me?
sitting there on the couch at 3:30 in the morning and just eating a bowl of ice
Half
cream.
asleep. Like, it doesn't even make any
Seriously.
sense.
I don't know what it is. And I brought it up at the end of my counseling session, but my counselor was like, yeah, let's talk about that. It's good that you brought that up. I mean, it's one of those things. It's like an addictive behavior that I've always noticed prior to any relapse is waking up in the middle of the night. And I don't know if it's because I'm stressed out or it's because of the sleep apnea, but whatever it is, I wake up and then I eat food and go back to bed. And it contributes a lot to when I gain weight too. Because that's what happens. It really does get out of hand, and I start eating way too much, and then your body's just storing all that as fat.
And you go lay right back down.
Right, you just sleep and it stores every single bit of it as fat. So I don't know if it's just, a symptom or if it's a cause. I have no idea. So I want to dissect that with her.
I know. Well, I start to wonder. I feel like every human being has some kind of behavior along those lines in one
Right.
way, shape, or form.
Right.
And I start to wonder, is it something we ever really can get rid of completely? Or is it just, as far as in them going beyond just addicts, like every human being has something that they do that is like a coping mechanism that you could imply it to be a addictive behavior.
Yeah.
Of like the lifestyle or whatever. Like I think of the eating thing. I think of the energy drinks. Like I have this energy drink now. And I found myself, I'm going to wait to have it right before the podcast that I do with Matt later on.
Right,
So I can
right.
try to get that little kick.
It's crazy. And that's what like my dad or probably all of our parents do with coffee in the morning. It's just it. And do you need to get rid of them? There's another thought too.
That's kind of what I was going to get at.
You know what I mean?
'Cause is it necessary? Is it something that we should be harder on ourselves about as far as I need to change this?
Well, here's a major difference is you're not going to destroy your life because you can't get your coffee in the morning.
Yes,
You know?
exactly. Well, that's a big difference, but is it something that we should really, being somebody in recovery, is it something we should be like focused on completely? Like, I got to stop that.
I guess maybe focusing on it as a small thing to keep yourself hyper aware of larger things, to keep the devil at the door, as they say, so that you're not like, you don't slip into complacency, let's say. Because that, for me, is another huge thing. Like, as soon as I'm kind of worried about, like, going off of the shot and everything and not having to go to outpatient, because what that always breeds in me is just total complacency. And then I get to a point where it's like 4 months after I've been to an outpatient appointment and I'm smoking weed every night again,
I just had that discussion when I went camping with Christine, because something I think I might do in the future. I'm not like, it's not like I have a set date where right now I'll do it, like smoking weed. But that's the one thing I said. I don't want to go back to doing that every day.
Right. And it's becoming more acceptable. Example, I saw it on the side of a label, like a prescription drug label. It said, like, you know how they've always had, like, this drug may cause drowsiness. Alcohol may intensify this effect. Now it says alcohol and marijuana may intensify this effect. So it is
getting normalized.
It's becoming normalized, and people are not frowning upon it, like, almost at all anymore. I don't think I've met anyone in the past year or so really who's like dead set against it. There is a minority that is still, obviously the ultra right, I'm sure, is probably still against it, but it is being viewed as an herbal supplement, as a medication. I think it's totally shifted from the propaganda that we saw way back when to what
definitely
it is now,
has.
Which those were all lies anyway.
Oh my gosh, it's crazy. I was talking to somebody about that the plant itself, like even the hemp plant, it's like an alien plant, bro. Like the things that cannabis that can do are out of this world.
Yeah, it is.
And
really
that goes
cool.
well above and beyond talking about it in a medicinal sense.
Right.
Just the hemp plant in an industrial sense is unbelievable.
Yeah.
It lasts forever. It's lighter. It's stronger and lighter than steel.
Yeah, and it had a lot to do with, like, the propaganda way back in the day had a lot to do with a lot of interest in the timber industry, where hemp was, like, encroaching upon that. So they were like, no, we can't have
what
this.
was his name? William Randolph Hearst, right? I believe his
so.
name is.
Maybe. That sounds right.
Yeah,
Let's go
and
with
he
it.
started all that propaganda about it being the blacks and the Mexicans.
Yeah, racist propaganda.
Yeah, it's
no
crazy.
less. So that's what a lot of this stigma against marijuana is built on, is like racist propaganda from the 50s or before even, I would say.
Which is crazy to think about. It's 2019.
Yeah. But I
And
mean, there's still people who grew up who were influenced, I guess you could say, by people who were in their prime during that time period. So like our parents would have been influenced by our grandparents who were in their prime during
That
when
time.
racism was a thing, when, ultra right was probably just kind of middle of the road in our country.
Yeah, it's insane to me, dude. I don't get how people don't educate themselves. And I get there are like safety precautions.
Yeah, and I know, like, for sure there has been studies that say,
If you're predisposed to schizophrenia,
yeah,
like, it
there's
can
that.
cause that.
There's
and-
also, like, you shouldn't do it as a teenager, which obviously,
Yeah,
you know what I
shouldn't
mean?
be doing any
You
drugs.
shouldn't be,
Yeah.
I would say, kind of stay away from caffeine as a teenager,
Mhm.
because any of that, like, your brain is still developing. You don't want to do anything like that that's going to give your brain a crutch, really, is kind of what you're doing. I don't know, if my parents never let me drink coffee when I was a kid. I
No.
don't think I started.
I don't think I had any desire to, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, my dad always used to drink it, and he drank it really, like, sweet, so I would always want to drink some, but I was never allowed until, I don't know, I was probably... Actually, I think I moved out, and that's when I started drinking coffee.
Yeah, it's bizarre. And, like, yeah, I don't think your frontal lobe is done developing until your early 20s.
Yeah, that's absolutely accurate. So they say that if you smoke it while that's developing, obviously it stunts your learning ability, which that makes perfect sense. I think there are a lot of other things that would do that too, which is why you can't drink until you're 21, So I say, yeah, more power to you, making sure that it doesn't get in the hands of children, just like tobacco or alcohol. But I think to totally outlaw, like there was a time recently where it was even illegal to do research on it. That's why nothing was changing with it.
And I just listened to a huge podcast on all these big, I don't want to say necessarily scientists, but people from Johns Hopkins University and all that
Okay.
did this conference on hallucinogenics and, therapy and stuff.
Right.
And they were just talking about how they're finally allowed to start doing research again with this.
Which is great.
And it's going to be insane, man. I'm super pumped for it because you got a lot of people who are doing it in a very intelligent way, using it correctly the way it should be used. Because I've always been a proponent of it. And I think it's it's going to be such an amazing tool to help people with depression, with PTSD. With
seizures, I think, is another one.
CBD, I know helps a lot with that. But just, with mescaline, MDMA, psilocybin, there's just so many crazy, amazing tools if they're used correctly. And as long as, obviously, we can't ignore some of the downsides of it, but, that's just precaution. You got to, that's with everything.
Yeah.
You can't take too much blood pressure medication.
Yeah, and that's the
You're
thing.
in trouble.
A lot of times you're trading a cure for additional side effects that are outweighed by the benefits, but you got to be careful about that, and that's something that you and your doctor have to weigh out. Is it worth it? For example, if you're gonna go get chemo, you're gonna be sick as hell, but is it worth it to get rid of the cancer? Yeah, usually that's the decision people make. Yeah, I don't know. I think as addiction medicine develops, we need to be more open-minded and obviously get away from the abstinence view and start moving towards the harm reduction view.
Which I think it's coming out because I think these self-help groups like AA and NA are, when it comes to opiate addiction, are failing miserably.
Yeah,
They're
absolutely.
failing miserably. And people are looking for something else that's helping. And I've heard, there's a lot of people that I've had on the show that, are like, we have enough, medical assisted treatment stuff out there. I don't think we need to add cannabis to it. But at the same time, there's a lot of people who Suboxone hasn't worked for. There's a lot of people that methadone hasn't worked for. And I think it's important that we take all pathways and legalize everything, and whatever works for somebody can work for somebody.
Oh, absolutely. There's no reason to say, we have enough. That's not...
I don't feel like you can have too much.
Yeah, that's a cop-out, I think.
Because everybody's so different. And there was a study, but it kind of like they didn't really get to do the long follow-up on it.
Right.
but that was done in the 70s with LSD and heroin addiction, and it was just unbelievable. The
Wow.
people who were able to get clean after 3 sessions with
Yeah.
LSD. And like I said, they weren't. I think that's when the rug got pulled out from underneath it, and the government shut everything down. It's crazy, man. The beautiful tools that are out there that have this stigma attached to it.
Yeah. Well, that's thanks to all those hippies in the 70s.
Yeah, they really screwed that
You
up.
jackasses.
60s and 70s. Like, you guys should have sat the next few plays out there and calmed down a little bit. Jesus Christ.
Definitely a little too much. So yeah,
it's nuts. But yeah, welcome back to Room 9 again.
Thanks. Thank you. I'm loving
I don't
it.
even think I have to introduce you anymore.
No, your sister, that was funny. When she met me, she's like, I feel like I know your voice already. Like an old friend.
It's crazy how that happens, bro, because I feel like that about the podcasts I love.
Mm-hmm.
These people I've never met, Sam Harris.
Right.
And, the people from Very Bad Wizards I love. And
Yeah.
obviously Joe Rogan Experience I listen to when he has certain guests on a lot. I've been listening to him for probably, 7-8 years now.
Wow.
And you feel like it's weird because you feel like those people and they have no idea that you exist.
Yeah, I mean, it's still cool, though, because you're having some sort of impact, which is obviously what you've set out to do. So I think as the show gains more traction, too, you're going to start to really get rewarded in that aspect.
Mhm.
You're going to see more and more people coming out of the woodwork and just randomly, oh, yeah, I know all about your podcast and it's helped me with X, Y, Z,
Yeah, I got a Facebook message the other day from
Right.
somebody like, hey, just want to let you know I listen to your podcast all the time. I love it.
That's great.
And I'm like, all right, well, if you could donate because I'm completely broke, that'd be
hurting for
awesome.
money.
No, I didn't say that to
The
him.
podcast is dying.
But I love getting those messages.
Yeah,
I absolutely love them.
And you got to keep yourself going with those, because there is going to come a point where you're going to break through and money's not going to be an issue. But you really just got to push yourself through.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I told you the car ride the other day about any business you start. It's a roller coaster,
Yeah.
man. Should I be doing this? Is this going to fail? Am I
Right.
wasting my time?
Right.
And then you get high again, and it's like, all right, yes, I'm
Yeah.
going to kick ass.
I'm never stopping this ever. Yeah, which is good because they say, and I don't know if this is outdated information, but I've always heard that 5 years or so is the time frame where you kind of struggle through with a small business. But if you can push through those first 5, it starts to become self-reliant and rewarding at that point.
And seeing how I started in 8-9 months ago, it's
Yeah.
crazy growth, man.
Oh, huge.
Insane.
Yeah, that's what I was saying too. Like, you look at yourself, think about another 8 months on top of it. You're growing in leaps and bounds.
It's crazy.
It's just going to keep getting more and more. And just, keep doing little things like grabbing a mic here and upgrading your computer there, and your sound is going to get better. Your editing skills are going to get better. I think the podcast is going to just keep growing.
I mean, I listened to the second episode not too long ago, and the sound quality.
Seriously,
I'm like, holy
was
crap!
going through. When was this? Like a month ago. And I was like, I'm just going to make sure I know what's on every episode. So I was just going to listen to all of them. And the first episode, I was like, okay, I think I can kind of skim
skip
over this one. Not that it was like bad material. It's just kind of hard to listen to because
compared
of,
to now, yeah, it's
what
night
you
and
were
day.
working with. So,
Crappy laptop.
yeah, it's going to get better and better, man.
I mean, the crappy system, digital audio workstation,
Right.
The free one, Audacity. I mean, I couldn't believe the difference when I got Adobe. I'm like, holy crap,
Yeah. Huge.
this is awesome.
Well, and now that you're going to be working with Spectrum too, you're going to start to see a lot more support come from there because they have a circle of influence that you're now going to be able to tap into, just like you did with Horizon for a little while, which I'm sure Horizon still supports you in a big way too, right?
Oh yeah, no, Anne's always there to back me up.
Good.
Which
Which
is
is great.
cool,
And
yeah.
then if you can get, Save the Michaels in there and Spectrum, I think those are like the big 3 as far as recovery. Oh, I guess Best Self, right?
Yeah. But other than that, I think that is really it.
That's kind of it for the area, right?
I don't know what else they have.
There's, what you might want to check into is the Beacon Center out Lockport way.
Okay.
And then Jacasa is another one. That's like Orleans County way.
Renaissance Center, where's that?
Isn't that part of Jacasa?
Is it? I don't know.
I have
I
no
don't
idea.
know.
But yeah, so Batavia, Albion, that's Jacasa, which is like Genesee Council on alcohol and substance abuse. That's actually in 2013. That's where I started going because I was living out that way.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And they put me on Suboxone and got me started on my journey, which is great. You know, and they always recommended that I do what I did with Horizon and get my mental health state checked out, which I never did the first time around. I'm so glad I addressed that the second time around because that's huge, man.
That's it. I think that's where all the money lies.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
In order to work on to really stop using, or at least do the harm reduction thing and really change things, it has to start it from the inside, man.
Yeah.
It has to. And I started reading this book and was sitting down with the dude to do a podcast, Moving Past Mediocre, I believe the name of the book is.
Oh, that's cool.
But he is, the first thing he talked about, and was awesome reading this, was he was like, this is the first thing you have to start doing. And it was funny because in jail, I remember it was the first thing I told myself, if I don't change this, I'm never going to be able to do anything else. And that is really like the self-talk.
Yes.
This how you talk to yourself. And like the example he uses is, if I was eating a pizza every day and just sitting on the couch and getting fatter, it's easier to look at your actions and be like, I need to stop that. But it's so much more difficult to look at your thoughts and be like, I need to stop that, because that's where it all like stems from. And if you start taking care of that, you can easily take care of the other things. But that's why it's so hard to continue the actual actions, the physical actions, because of the self-talk. So if I'm trying to quit eating pizza, but I'm not talking to myself right, and I'm not encouraging myself and loving myself and all of those things, it's going to be so difficult, because you screw up one little time, you're done.
Yeah.
You're going to hate yourself and be, you suck. You're never going to do this. You can't accomplish anything. You can't do nothing right. And
Yeah.
it's like the number one place where change, I believe, starts is how are we talking to ourselves?
Yeah, for me, in that area, it started with just being easier on myself. Not necessarily even being nice to myself or encouraging myself, but just not being so hard on myself when I do make errors.
Yeah, but that self-talk is, I think, that one of the biggest keys to starting to change, starting to work on your habits. Because it's that stupid cliche saying, if you don't love yourself, how can you love everybody else?
Yeah.
It's like, so if you don't have compassion with yourself, forgiveness with yourself, you can't, do it with anybody else, and let alone be able to work on yourself and change yourself in the correct manner.
Yeah.
In order to, in this case, that people we're usually talking about are people who struggle with substance use.
Right.
And that's like the number one thing.
And it's something you can start right now, where there's a lot of things where change becomes abstract and kind of grandiose, where you're trying to put together in your mind this huge plan, but you have to start with something and asking yourself, what is it that I can do right now to better myself? That's one of those things. Change your self-talk.
It is.
And start this moment, like literally in this moment, because someone might be sitting out there listening to this podcast, for example, right now.
I'll start next week.
Right. And maybe they have things that they're supposed to be doing, right? But they've decided to take an hour out of their day for themselves because this is something that they enjoy. For me, that's a spot in my life where I could be really hard on myself and be like, oh, you've got all these other things to do. How dare you take time out for yourself, right? So just changing that self-talk in this moment is something that you can do to start to change yourself.
And it doesn't matter how long it like takes you, as far as even like noticing it. Because I remember when I first started doing it, it was sometimes hours into this self-pity, feeling sorry for myself, negative thinking, that I would notice, wait, I'm doing this again.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes a while.
Takes practice. Yeah.
And I think in the book, the author used the analogy of working out. Working out is such a great analogy for so many things.
Mm-hmm.
But he used the analogy of working out. Like when you first start lifting weights or start running on a treadmill, you don't see results that day. Like you don't see results. I mean, you can kind of feel them, be like, all right, yeah, that was a good workout.
Yeah.
Because you're sore or you're tired, whatever it is. But you don't see, your body doesn't change immediately. It takes a while to do it. And I love that analogy, because that's exactly what it is with your self-talk. You're not going to instantly turn around and start thinking positively.
Right.
Obviously, because you probably have had decades of this negative
yeah.
self-talk, at least decades of it. And it takes a long time to rewire your brain to go to the more positive side.
Yeah, and I think if I were to have kids, that would be something that I would probably try and instill in them, is not only being nice to others, but being kind to yourself. You know, self-compassion. It's a beautiful thing.
Well, I've been having that talk with both of my kids. They're 12 and 7.
Right.
And you already see the being self-conscious about things, whether
Sure.
it was Kayla with her drawing,
Right.
you know, whether it's Jason with any kind of like physical activities.
Yeah.
And it's like, but if you don't keep doing it and have confidence in yourself and keep being cool with sucking at it for a little bit. And that's what I think keeps us from doing it is we tell ourselves we suck at it and we don't want to even do it because we're scared to suck at it.
Agreed.
But anything in life that you do when you first start off, you're going to suck at it, going back to this podcast. And this is going to be probably episode 38. And episode 1, crappy sounding audio. The editing was nowhere near as good. And so look at how far I've come.
Yeah.
I have a long way to go. I have so much to learn,
Sure.
as we've just seen with this witnessing of it stopping recording. Like I got to figure that out. But look at how far I've come. So, you know, with this podcast and the sound quality and just everything else. And it's just, that's what it is. And that's why I love that Jordan Peterson, compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who somebody else is today, because I've used that for such a long time now. To be like, all right, but look at how far you've come. Yeah, you got a long way to go, but look at how much change you have made since April 12th, 2018. And that's where your encouragement comes in. Wait, I have done a lot of work. That's right.
Right, but you wouldn't want to compare yourself to Joe Rogan, for instance, because he's
who
on
has
episode
90 million downloads
He's on
a month.
episode, what, 9,000 or something? What was the number?
He's
the other
like,
day?
I think 1,100, 1,200.
Yeah, so that's crazy. Think about, because if you were to compare yourself to him, how small 38 looks compared to 1,200.
Yeah,
right?
it's insane.
It's next to nothing. You're a fraction of the way to him. So if you ever started comparing yourself to him, you'd probably quit tomorrow.
Yeah,
Because you're
absolutely.
like, I'm never going to get there. How do I do, 1,170 more episodes?
Oh, it's crazy.
You can't. So you can say, well, you know what? I can do episode 39 and episode 40, and they're going to be better than 37 and 36, so.
That's where it's at, baby.
Absolutely.
That's where change begins. And that's so important because we get so down on ourselves, dude.
Yeah.
We get so down on ourselves, and that's what keeps us from friggin' doing anything. That's what's kept me from doing anything creative, anything I've wanted to do my entire existence, almost 34 years of consciousness on this planet. I have always been scared to try anything because of failing and thinking, I don't want anybody to think I suck at this.
Yeah, and you don't want to look bad because, I don't know, for some reason our society tells us we always have to put on this image of, like, being competent and everything, but you're not competent until you do something over and over and over and over, and you fail at it a few times. One of my favorite quotes from Walt Disney, who's one of my favorite businessmen, is that every young person should have a good failure in their life. Because, I mean, he failed miserably when he first set out to become a cartoonist. He had a whole thing that went on when he was like in his early 30s, late 20s. And he came back from that and created one of the most profitable corporations in America, if not the most profitable.
Yeah, it's definitely
And
up
that's
there.
what and that's what he said, is every young person should have at least one good failure in their life. It's funny that he describes it as good, and I think obviously he meant like a large failure. It turns out to be good. Like, I can easily use my last, stint going through rehab as like getting myself to a place where I'm finally on a career path that I enjoy. But I never would have gotten here if I just kept trucking along through life miserable, trying to do everything the way that I had done it the day before. There was so much that I learned through that huge, huge failure of being a 30-year-old man with next to nothing, if not nothing, and in rehab. Like, that is hard to go through.
Oh my gosh.
But what's come out of it is something that I wouldn't trade anything for, so.
That's what's awesome. When you pay attention in your failures, dude, they become something that you do not regret whatsoever.
Absolutely.
You do not regret them. And that's so important. I think there's that Zen saying that's kind of similar to the Walt Disney saying is, a Zen master has failed more times than you have even tried.
Exactly.
And that's
a
what it's all
beautiful
about.
thing.
And there's nobody, you will meet nobody who's successful at something who hasn't failed multiple times and gotten back up and learned from their mistakes and kept pushing forward.
Agreed.
There is nobody who is successful that you will meet that has not failed many, many times. And we have to continuously remind ourselves of that. And I think that can even be brought back to relapse. So many people get so down on themselves because, I had a few beers and got kicked out of my Oxford house. Whatever, fuck it. I'm just going back at this.
Yeah.
Who cares? I failed anyway.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating to me to hear. I had a friend that was living in the Oxford house. He was there when I first moved in, and he moved out, and he had a little slip up, and I could see it in his face, man. And I think he's doing good now after I talked to him and I encouraged him to talk to his counselor about it and shit. But it's just like, it's so frustrating because you feel shame and failure and guilt. Like, stop.
Yeah.
It's fucking fine that you had some beers.
Right.
It's okay. Just, all right, what do you need to work on in order to not fall back into this hole again?
Exactly.
It's not a big deal. That doesn't mean anything. And I think those AA and NA groups put such an emphasis on clean time.
Oh, I know.
Clean time as in I stopped now and I have no slip-ups to this point.
Yeah.
And
That's
they
a
base
terrible thing.
everything on it. Everything on those
It is.
coins, dude. A stupid-ass
Yeah,
coin.
or a keychain or
Yeah.
whatever the fuck it is.
It's so retarded. And
It keeps you a victim, too.
it
you know?
does. It totally does. And I had that discussion with somebody before, not too long ago on this podcast, because he went on about the language, and I talked about how at first it felt great to say, "Hi, I'm Sean, and I'm an addict."
Right.
It felt great,
'Cause
but
you need to
eventually,
name it.
eventually I was like, "This is stupid," because I'm so much more than just an addict. Why am I saying this all the time?
Right.
And I seen that change in me, and now it's like I don't even enjoy saying that anymore because
Right.
I'm a podcast host, I'm a
Right.
father, I'm a
And you've addressed that. That's the other thing. Like, okay, yeah, I'm an addict. Also, I've done a lot of work on that too. I mean, that should be acknowledged every meeting or whatever you want to call it, right? Like how much you've done to fix that. If you continuously say like I'm an addict, what are you working at?
I know.
You're doing all this work, but for what? If you're still the same thing that you were when you started this whole thing. Like,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, man. And it's nuts to me. It's frustrating to me is really what it is.
it is. Because people who I think are not simple, I don't want to use that. Like, not people who need structure and need rules to guide their lives are perfect for those types of programs because then they have, okay, boom, 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 here are the steps. This is what I need to do, and I'm going to do it, and it's going to work. And it will work, guaranteed. It's worked for thousands of people.
Yeah.
But where I run into the biggest problem with that is it's not for everyone. You make these blanket statements that it's going to help everyone, and it won't. There are
No.
people that will not be helped from 12-step programs.
No, not at all. I really wasn't helped by them. There's some awesome concepts in there, just like in Christianity, that I can pull some things
Sure,
out
yeah.
and apply to my life, and it makes my life better.
Absolutely.
And I've learned something. But
Yeah.
to sit there for me to start at step one, have somebody walk with me through it, tell me I can't talk to people and apologize to people till I get to that step. I can't handle that. It's like, I don't think so, buddy.
Not gonna work for everyone, and that's where I run into the biggest. I think the only time I've ever really argued with people in that program, because you can't reach them, you know what I mean? Like they're
No.
so in their own headspace and like living in this echo chamber where they're always right that you can't, like, arguing with them is fruitless. But the only time that I have in the past, I think, is just to try and demonstrate to them that it's great that it worked for you, and it's great that it works for all of your friends because you've now isolated yourself to that group of people. That's beside the point. But there are people that need something else other than that,
Absolutely.
and they just don't give any credibility. You know, they like to like down talk MAT and doctors and therapy and just
my
stuff that
gosh.
helps probably, I would say, as many if not more people than are helped in 12-step
Oh,
program.
absolutely does. Yeah, I mean, we know a few of them personally that are really involved in AA, and they are just, they do. I mean, to this day, looking at my record of how successful I've been since my arrest and rehabs, they still will think in their heads that I am lost and need to be saved.
Yeah, it's funny, and it's hard to maintain a friendship with them too, because it's like, dude, some of the shit that comes out of your mouth is super stupid, and I don't know if I can be around you.
Oh my
So
gosh.
I've had to distance myself from quite a few of them.
I have too. I definitely have. I mean, I have one friend that that just recently, I guess I don't know if I call him a friend still, that blocked me and isn't talking to me anymore. And I could see his downward spiral, his mental health go down. I've heard rumors of him going and, abusing benzos. And this other friend who's really involved in AA is like, he's doing good. We all just are going through what we're going through. I'm like, bro, you're clueless. I told him the other day because he said he sounded good to me. And I was like, dude, but he's not. He's not doing good. There's a lot of people who are worried about him.
Right.
And this goes way outside of Oxford House gossip.
Right, of course.
He's not doing good. I don't know, what doing good is to you. Like, I don't know if in AA and NA, that's a thing where when you're doing really bad, that means you're about to do really good or something. I mean, I don't know. But I was like, I don't know.
This is at the perfect spot in his journey to really come for a breakthrough.
It's great. It is great. I'm just like, oh my gosh, there's so much work to be done yet, I guess, in all of this. I just really want open-mindedness, and it's tough when you're around somebody who's closed-minded, and the way that worked for me is the way, the only way.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where you have to maintain an open mind, because it's so individual. It's so different for every single person who's going to struggle with addiction. There's so many nuances between just the difference between our addictions. Ours are similar. Like, we have a similar story, I guess you could say, but they're still so separate and so different that they need a different approach for both of us. You know?
Every little detail.
If you think about how different the next addict is going to be from me or you, I didn't ever spend time in jail or homeless. You know what I mean? So just throw those two little weird nuances in there and you have a whole new treatment plan that you have to come up with. So it doesn't leave any room for individuality. And that's 100% necessary today.
Oh my gosh, for anything in life, because there are you get a huge group of people. You can pick out generalizations.
Absolutely.
And you can pick out character traits that, these groups of people will have that are similar and maybe different defense mechanisms that generally addicts will use and different ways of manipulating. And those are all cool because that's where you need to start gaining traction and direction. But then you get into, one thing my father could have said to me when I was 7 years old means that you have to do something completely different with me than this guy next to me whose parents did something totally different and affected them in a totally different way, which means they're going to react to what you're doing with them in a totally different way.
Right.
And it's such a huge thing. And that's why it takes so much time and patience and working with individuals one-on-one. All right, what's going to work for you?
Right.
And that's why you have recovery coaches, therapists, doctors. I mean, the list goes on, counselors, and you're working with all these people to find out what is going to work for you in your recovery, in your path, on your journey. And that goes with anybody who's looking for self-help, not even addicts.
Yeah, and I just, you mentioned recovery coaching, just to plug that, I feel like I have gained so much from working with Tara was my first recovery coach, and then Abby now is my recovery coach, and both amazing people. And also there is something completely different that I gain from meeting with my recovery coach than what I get from going to a counseling session. And you couple those two things with my medications that I'm on, and then seeing, doctors who are professionals who are trained in the area of addiction medicine. That, for me, is my entire treatment program. And it looks very different for me than it does for anyone else. But having so the way it ends up working out for me is that I end up seeing someone at least once a week who has more experience, more knowledge, more ways that they can help me than anyone else that I could meet. Anyway, I totally lost my train of thought there.
your recovery coach, your doctor,
recovery coach,
therapist,
blah blah blah.
counselor.
It's my treatment program. There, that's it. That's all I had. That's all I was trying to say.
But no, it is super, super important. One of the biggest things I loved, and it was awesome, and I thought some people when I was taking my recovery coach classes were just going to quit because first thing they take and bring to the table for you is you have to get your way. There's only one way to recovery out of your head.
Yeah.
And there was a couple people that are totally involved in AA and NA that were there, and they struggled for a little bit. They pulled through. They really I was really pumped up to see it because it made me kind of encouraged to not just throw all of them to the side and think they're always going to be the one way kind of thinking.
Yeah.
But I mean, they admitted I struggled with this in the beginning because the multiple pathway thing.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who smokes pot every couple days but stopped using heroin, has a job, is working hard, making good money, is in recovery.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like they struggled with that for a little bit, but it was cool to see people kind of be able to be swayed in a different way. And like, oh yeah, maybe they got a point. But I loved that was the first thing really that was pushed. Listen, if you are coming in here thinking that your way is the only way, then you might as well just leave now, because it's simply not true.
No, absolutely.
There's so many different ways to be in quotes recovery. And whatever. And I've preached that my whole life about anything, as far as working on yourself and becoming a better person, whether it was theologies or whatever is helping you change and fix the things in yourself, whatever's helping you do that and grow is what works for you. And that's your way of living, and that's the way you should do things.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that's where having a recovery coach there are things that I'll tell my recovery coach that it's not that I would try to hide them from my counselor, but I just feel like it's more appropriate, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And vice versa. Like there's things that I just wouldn't waste my time telling Abby because I've already talked through it with Aaron, my counselor, So I don't know. It's just there's so many little things like that I have set up in my life today that prior to my relapse, I didn't have any of them set up. And keeping those in place is huge for me. Like that's what's going to keep me going forward and going to keep me from becoming complacent. So I've been struggling actually over the last week to get in touch or get a session with Abby just because she's been out of town and now I'm going, out away for the weekend. But always coming back to that and making sure that I don't get a case of, you know what, screw this. It's not even worth the trouble. It's already been however many days since I've, talked to her or whatever. So why bother now? That attitude has to just stay out of my mind because it's always worth it to come back and continue to develop and work through whatever it is that you were whatever it is that you started to work on,
It's huge, baby. Huge, constantly talking about things, and it gets so difficult to uphold that, though, sometimes, man.
Oh, absolutely.
It is so funny how easy it is to just clam up.
Yeah, and just be like, oh, you know what? I've done so much work. I deserve just a little bit of time to, not do that.
Oh, it's so crazy. And then that you can, be doing it and not even notice it till you're in the middle of doing it.
Right, yeah. It's crazy.
Even what's kind of the situation between Christina and I right now, it's so hard. I have to just tell her, I'm becoming apathetic. And she's like, well, because you're becoming apathetic, it makes me feel like crap being around you, and I don't want to be around you.
Right.
And,
so
and it's
circle,
so, I was like, oh, this is quite the enigma. But it was talking about it that broke and shattered all of that and this was through text.
Right.
This wasn't even a deep conversation we got together and had. It was just a quick, hey, listen, this is what I'm feeling. Hey, listen, this is how I'm feeling.
Right.
All right, well, let's work on these two things.
Exactly.
And it's just so simple. And it's just how crazy how just saying those things can refresh your attitude in life.
Because it's so easy. And let's keep on that example. It would be so much easier just to be like, you know what? I'm apathetic, so fuck it, I'm done. And I'm walking away from it. And then once you throw that into the atmosphere and you put that onto Christine or whatever, it's so easy for her to be like, okay, that's what we're doing then. You know what I mean? And where you could have talked about it and you could have worked it out and continued working in what is apparently a great relationship, right? You could have kept developing it, kept working on it. Now you've thrown it away because you decided to clam up and not talk about it. You decided to take this one time, you decided to take the easy route and say, you know, go F yourself or whatever. Now you've taken whatever possibilities are in the future for you guys and just totally taken it off your table, you know? That sucks.
Because of something so simple. It really was a
Right.
simple thing.
Right.
And it's amazing. And something else have really tried and struggled recently to come to terms with is how so many people, and again, this kind of is related to the whole, we all grew up differently, so we all react differently, we all treat
Sure.
situations differently, is how when you're in like a situation, I have a habit of putting myself in people's shoes and you being like, but if I was doing it this way, I would do it this way. If I was in your position, I would do it this way. That's what I meant to say. So if I was in your position, in your shoes, I would be reacting to this situation this way.
Mm-hmm.
You're not reacting to this situation this way, so this must mean that.
Right.
And like, as in, you're not reacting to it the way I would, so maybe you don't care as much about this as I do.
Sure.
And you start telling yourself these stories. But the one thing I started like saying, and it sounds super cheesy, is the story I'm telling myself is this: is you don't want to pay attention to me, is you don't want to, that you don't love me. And it sounds super cheesy to say that, but it really makes a world of difference when you're trying to communicate with somebody. And it's like, hey, Matt, the story that I'm telling myself right now, it sounds so cheesy, but
Right.
is when you did this means you don't like me, or
Right.
you think I'm a piece of shit, or whatever it is. And that right there is like, when you say it in that way to somebody, as in, Matt, what the fuck? You're an asshole. Why'd you do that?
Exactly.
It's
Way better.
completely different.
Far. And I will probably react to the first way where you're just trying to convey that this is how I perceived what you did.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about it, as opposed to you suck because you did this. You know what I mean?
Completely
Like,
different.
I'm going to react in two very different ways to that. And you're now addressing the same situation. So you're going to get better and better outcomes in your life. And maybe, yeah, so it sounds cheesy, but maybe you can find a better way to word it. You know, maybe you don't have to say it in that way, but just, you know, when you did this, it made me feel as though XYZ. You know, that is something that I'll do a lot. You know, in my intimate relationships, or, you know, in my one-on-one relationship with Megan, like, a lot of times I will perceive her actions as one way when really she was motivated by something totally different, and that's the reason that she did whatever it was. So yeah, I think calling those things out and doing it, I guess it's kind of doing it in a non-confrontational manner, you know?
It is. And I think it immediately, as opposed to like the latter way I said it, would have put you in defense mode.
Yeah.
I'm going to defend myself now because I didn't mean it like that. And now you think I'm an asshole. So fuck you. You're an asshole.
Right.
And as opposed to saying it in the former way, you're like, oh shit, I made him feel bad. No, dude, those weren't my intentions at all. I did not make you feel this way. And it's crazy the difference that can make in communication. It's huge. It's important. Every relationship you have, especially more intimate ones with your significant other, and it's such a necessary component because there's so many times, and more I observe and am really looking at situations where people are having breakdowns in their relationships. It has to do with a lack of communication.
Yeah.
And a lack of understanding that each and every one of us handles situations and reacts to situations differently. And even to swing it back to the beginning of this conversation about how, you know, there's multiple pathways of recovery, and we all have to pay attention and put the work and effort in to ourselves of how am I going to get through this? What is going to work for me? And I think that's the number one thing to pull away from things, because I mean, in general, put addiction aside, put substance use disorder aside, like life is difficult enough. People have enough issues. I'm realizing this more and more, that there's grown ass people who have never struggled with a drug in their life that are really annoying, terrible people who don't work on themselves at all. They're completely selfish, self-centered, egocentric, dysfunctional. And I just feel like people don't change, man. People don't want to change. No. And that's like the number one thing to building like an awesome, hey, I'm happy kind of life, is that communication.
Yeah.
And self-talk. because that's another topic we touched on, and that's huge. All of those are huge to progressing in our existence on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
I think my new slogan is, instead of through and eyes for the world to see, is if you better yourself, you can better the world.
That's where you got to start.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only thing you can do.
Literally the only thing you can actually do.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. If you better yourself, you better. That's how I started with this journey of introspection and working on myself. Was I just remember realizing my mid-20s, and this was even before my heroin addiction, was the only way I can help change the universe is if I work on myself.
True that.
And that's right. But you need that good self-talk if you're going to do that, because I'll tell you what, when you start pulling things out that you suck at, you better have some self-compassion and acceptance along with that.
Absolutely.
That was one of my biggest things. I
Yeah.
had none of that, and I was like, damn, you are a piece of shit. That's right. All right, Matthew.
It's been fun.
It's another one, more technical difficulties. I'm going home and going to start figuring this out, because
Just edit the crap out of it.
I always do. You won't even know that happened other than if I keep what I just said in.
Right.
But yeah, we'll figure this out.
It's been fun.
I know it's no longer the audio hardware.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Have
Later.
a great night, everyone.
I'm Rob Burgundy. Okay, everybody. Hope you enjoyed that episode of Room 9. As I mentioned, that was one from the vaults. I hope you guys continue to show your love and your support. I can't thank you enough for it. Hope you guys have a great week. A reminder to get to the new and improved room9podcast.com. Check out everything on there. A new blog is up on self-pity. Get to the contact form. Get to the support page to see how you can help us out. And I hope you guys have a great week. Much love as always. Thank you guys for your encouragement and support and love. And I cannot wait to talk to you next week and let you know what's going on. So stay positive, stay strong, stay encouraged, stay in self-love, stay in self-acceptance. I will be talking to you guys later. Peace out.